Welcome back everyone, I'm Aric from Rayquaza, and today we're going to be checking out the new Japanese sets Skystream and Towering Perfection. These just got revealed in full last night at the time of recording. I actually fell asleep kind of right as these were getting uploaded, so today these by and large are going to be my first thoughts and just knee-jerk reactions. You know, a few cards we have seen a little bit in advance, but yeah, these are definitely going to be my raw thoughts pretty much 100% today. And these cards are pretty cool. You know, this marks the return of the Dragon type back into the Pokemon trading card game after like a yearish hiatus at this point. And also, these are going to largely make up what is going to be our Evolving Sky set later this summer. So these cards are, you know, they're not too far away. Just another month or so, 2 months. Is it really that soon already? Either way, a lot of cool stuff we're going to be checking out today. And before we get any further, if you guys can't remember to crush that like button, it genuinely does help us beat that pesky YouTube algorithm and help get this video seen by more people. But yeah, that's going to be it today. Let's hop in and see what these new sets have in store for us. So starting off with the Skystream cards, it looks like we do have a jump up, but this is going to be a Rapid Strike Illusion line, and the Skip 'em has the ability, once during your turn, when you attach energy from hand to this Pokemon, search your deck for a card that evolves from it. Okay, so definitely a good ability on Skip 'em. I like that. So let's check out Jump Off, again, a Rapid Strike card. So this Pokemon may attack twice a turn. If the first attack knocks out an opponent, you may attack again after your opponent chooses a new active. Well, that'd be a lot cooler if Jump Bluff didn't attack for 60. You know, 60 for 1 was actually kind of like a decent damage to energy ratio back in like the Heart Gold Soul Silver era, in the early days of the Black and White era, but this is nowhere near where it needs to be. Now, again, effectively this is 120 for 1 once you factor in your second attack, but guys, that's 3-shotting Pokemon VMAX. That's not near enough. You know, maybe had this been a single strike card, maybe we could talk, because single strike does have pretty decent ways of amplifying its damage output, but being Rapid Strike kind of is a bummer. So yeah, Jump Off is not too good unless we get some way to seriously augment our damage output for Rapid Strike cards. Not the biggest fan of this, but I will say this: if you do choose to play like Vitality Band or any of the gloves cards, those are actually a bit better than normal, because let's say you throw down, you know, Crushing Gloves to do 30 more damage to metal Pokemon. Well, you know, once you factor in your second attack, you're actually getting an additional 30. So really, a lot of these tool cards that change your damage output, you know, just get twice as good. Doing plus 60 from one of the gloves cards or plus 20 from Vitality Band actually kind of does make this slightly better than normal. Yeah, so maybe if we get some better damage augmenting cards, we can revisit Jump Off. Ooh, so we do have a Trevenant VMAX evolution line here. Okay, so Trevenant, 30 heal 30, pretty bad. Then 120, discard a card from your opponent's hand. Nothing too special, guys, but we do have, of course, Trevenant VMAX here. 40 for each supporter card in your opponent's discard pile. Okay, that's not too shabby. And then just a flat 180. 180 is fine. You know, we can two-shot VMAXs. But the first attack, definitely a little bit more interesting. You know, had this been like item cards, this would be pretty sick. But supporters, you know, most decks are playing, I'd say, around 11 supporters. I mean, granted, 11 times 40 is over 400 damage. That's good. But so let's see. Your opponent realistically needs 9 supporters in the discard to do 360. Now, if they do have 8, that's 320. That does knock out some of the VMAXs, but a lot of the ones like Rapid Strike, Urshifu, Eternatus, etc. are going to be over that 320 cap. So, yeah, this is an interesting attack, but not really good until the late game. And, yeah, we have a lot of non-supporter based draw in the format right now, too, with things like the Dene and Crobats, too. So, yeah, this attack is like alright. It's cool, but I don't think it's like super impressive. It's just kind of an all-around okay card. Okay, we have a Ninetales with an ability. As long as this Pokemon is in play, the retreat cost to each of your Pokemon with fire energy is 2 less. I mean, that's a solid ability if this was on a basic, but being on a stage 1, not a big fan of this, guys. You know, we can just throw down an air balloon that does the same thing. I mean, I guess the argument you can make is if your deck really wants a certain tool card to play, you know, you don't want to play air balloon, so this would be nice for those situations. But Yeah, being a stage 1, not a big fan of this ability. Again, the ability itself isn't bad, it's just, it needs to be on a basic to really, I think, see any play. So we have Victini. 30, you may search your deck for 2 cards, put them into your hand. Okay, not an awful attack. It can attack for a single twin energy, or, you know, just welder. But yeah, not a big fan of this. Marnie is everywhere. So a lot of times you're just going to do 30, search your deck for 2 cards, then lose those 2 cards to the bottom of your deck. Because of how prevalent cards like Marnie are, I think this damage would need to be higher in case you do get Marnie, because it is kind of likely. So yeah, not a big fan of Victini, but I do like the art. Alright, so we have a Volcarona V, not something I was expecting to see. No VMAX, just the regular V here, but let's see, 20 plus 20 more for each basic energy in your discard, then shuffle those cards back into your deck. Alright, and then 160 discard energy. Okay, second attack, not too great. First attack, definitely kind of interesting though. I don't know, the more I'm thinking about, the less and less I'm impressed with this. Yeah, you need a lot of energy in the discard to actually get some big one hits. So like 15, 16-ish energy, you take 1 shots on VMAXs. That's a lot, guys. I don't know if we're making that happen. I think our whole deck would have to be based around this attack to really make it see play. Kind of like the old Gyarados from Team Up, I want to say, or the like Sandaconda we just got back in Battle Styles, I think it was. So yeah, I think we have to kind of just build around this the more I'm thinking about it. Doesn't seem that great. Kind of seems like a gimmick. We have a Rapid Strike sent to Scorch. Okay. So let's see. 30 does 90 more. Doesn't matter. Card's going to get knocked out. And then 120. Okay. So bad card. So we got Gyarados VMAX. I actually do want to say I remember these cards being revealed, but I didn't really pay too much attention to them. But Gyarados V, let's see. 20 times the amount of damage counters on this Pokemon. Okay. So with a Cape of Toughness, you actually can crank this up to, you know, 270. Maybe tank a hit with this. Then 180 for 4. Seems kind of bad. So Gyarados VMAX, 120 discarded energy for 3. 120 is just really bad. But I guess next turn you can just throw down another energy and finish off your 2-shot with Max Tyrant. Yeah, I'm not too impressed with this thing. Okay, so hear me out. I guess if you want to, you can play Buff Padding with Gyarados, because the VMAX does have a 4 retreat cost. Bump you up to 380. Oh no, I was going to say use Buff Padding, then Memory Capsule to use this attack on Gyarados, but no, we can't do that because we need both tools to do that. So yeah, I mean, you can use Memory Capsule if you want to copy this attack, since more than likely Gyarados can tank a hit. But yeah, I could see Gyarados being good. Like, if you take a knockout with one of Gyarados VMAX's attacks, then after your opponent attacks back into you, throw down Memory Capsule, get another multi-prize knockout with Temper Tantrum. Yeah, not too impressed. There's a lot of good water VMAXs at this point. I don't think Gyarados really makes a strong case for itself over like Inteleon, or Ice Rider Calyrex, or even Lapras. So yeah, I'm probably good on this. All right, so we have a Galerion Darmanitan. This card is actually kind of interesting. It has the same attack on the as the Bolton that we got back in, again, I think it was Battle Styles. But oops, scroll past it there. But yeah, so it said 130, but if this Pokemon has any damage counters on it, its attack cost is a water energy instead. Bolton has basically the same attack cost, but for lightning energy. So it does kind of appear we are getting the tools for some sort of Aurora energy based toolbox for a bunch of stage 1s. So with Old Cemetery plus Aurora energy, this hand Bolton actually can kind of function, which doesn't seem too awful to me. So maybe once ADP rotates, because I think that is going to be an issue for cards like this right now, but maybe once ADP rotates, we can come back to this sort of idea. But I do kind of like they are supporting what looks to be some sort of stage 1 Aurora energy toolbox. Okay, so we have Cryogonal. This attack is actually kind of interesting. Elemental Chain. Look at the top 6 cards of your deck. Attach any number of basic energies you find there to your Pokemon any way that you like. So this attack is kind of interesting, but I don't know what you're playing this in, to be honest. You have to play a ton of energy if you want to get even a couple of energy here. Like, you're going to need 20 plus energy minimum for a card like this to really be successful. So I just don't think there's too many decks that are trying to play that amount of energy right now. But maybe if there is one, Cryogonal could be an option for them. Alright, so we have a Wishy-Washy. Has this ability, if this Pokemon has at least 3 water energy, gets plus 150 HP. So that's pretty nice. That bumps you up to 180. And if you have a Cape of Toughness, 230 HP on just a little 30 HP Wishy-Washy. That is actually like kind of insane. And it does have an attack here, which you can power up with Twin Energy or Rapid Strike Energy. 30 plus 30 for each basic energy attached to this Pokemon. So I think it's pretty obvious. We're just trying to play Frostmoth with Wishy-Washy here to get it powered up. You know, 3 energy minimum is kind of what you want. That way you can make sure to get that plus 150 HP buff. 3 energy is only doing 120 to your opponent though. So you really need like 5 energy on your Wishy-Washy to go for 2 shots, which is okay. But I think it's going to be tough to ever even take 1-shots on 2 prize Pokemon. Like, I don't know, maybe I am underestimating Wishy-Washy's tankiness that it's going to have if you throw down your Cape of Toughness on this thing as well. But yeah, I think most of the time you're just going to be going for a 2-shot. So yeah, I mean, I think attack's just like maybe slightly underwhelming. Maybe if it was 60 plus 30, I'd be a little bit more excited. But I don't know, we have EXP share, I guess, as well, if we want to go that route, and energy retrievals to throw down our energy again with Frostmoth and stuff like that. This is a card that really makes me wish we had a Wishful Baton still in format. That would be a great card for, you know, a theoretical deck like this. But, you know, Wishy-Washy, it's okay. I don't think it's probably going to do much, but seems like a fun card for us to maybe do some meme decks on PTCGO with. Alright guys, so we have Flappy. This is a card that's been revealed for a little while now, for good reason. There's been a good bit of excitement around this. This is going to be the return of Dynamotor on the old Electric, but now it's on a Flappy. So we can accelerate lightning energy out of our discard pile to our benched Pokemon. Obviously, this is going to get paired with the new Rayquaza VMAX. But, you know, lightning has been in, you know, I don't want to say a tough spot for a while now. But really outside of Cocoa Prism, there hasn't been any great lightning acceleration. Like, I know we have Bolton, but that's acceleration basically on the first turn of the game, and that's it. Like, after the first turn, you don't want to use Electrify anymore. So Flappy is something that is, I think, a little bit needed, and might even sort of boost the playability of other lightning cards like Pikachu VMAX that have largely been kind of underwhelming up until now. So yeah, we will have to kind of comb through the card pool and see if there's any other lightning Pokemon that haven't been able to see play due to a lack of acceleration. So Flappy, obviously a really good card. Ampharos, not quite as excited for. If you were going to play this, it would only ever be as a one of. But 100, you may discard 3 lightning energy to do 120 more. You could play this as your Decidueye counter if your Rayquaza decks are running into that as an issue. But yeah, most of the time, I don't think you really want to play Ampharos. So we have a plus on Minun, and as usual, they do kind of have a gimmicky synergistic attack here. So Minun allows you to search your deck for basic Pokemon, and then Plusle has an attack that does 120 if your Minun attacked on the last turn. Not too great, I have to say. You know, these cards, very, very gimmicky, not going to be competitive at all. Alright, so next up we have a Toxtricity that is a little bit underwhelming, but I want to point it out just because I think in the right format, or if our format changes in a specific direction, this card could be good. Or maybe not good, but at least worth taking a look at. But for lightning colors to 70, and you may leave your opponent's active paralyzed. If you do, this Pokemon does 70 to itself. You know, auto paralysis actually over the years has been one of the better status conditions to inflict, but one of the issues we have right now is that the retreating methods that we have right now in the format are very much geared around cards like Switch, rather than cards that lower your retreat cost. So cards like Air Balloon are actually kind of what Toxtricity wants to see. If our format ever becomes much more geared around that, or like Tower of Waters, instead of these cards that bypass the retreating mechanic altogether, Toxtricity could be pretty good because, you know, you can play Switch to get out of paralysis, but you can't use Air Balloon to retreat while paralyzed. So that's the issue we have right now, is that Switch and Escape Rope, those cards are very, very popular. And as long as they are, a card like Toxtricity is not too good, especially with this sort of damage output. But again, if the meta ever does change in a way where those cards are less important, maybe we can take another look at this. All right, so next up we have Reggie Lucky's first card in the Pokemon TCG. So 20, not too great, but the second attack, 120, discard all lightning energy, does 40 to 2 of your opponent's benched Pokemon. So of course, normally this attack would be awful, but we just got Mareep, so there is actually a case to be made for Reggie Lucky. Now I am kind of bummed. I do wish this attack was like slightly stronger. I wish it was closer to like 150, 160. That way you could theoretically build around Reggie Lucky instead of being forced to play some heavier hitting like 2 and 3 prizers in a deck. But right now this could just be sort of a Decidui counter potentially in certain lightning decks. 120 and 40 spread to 2 things really isn't too bad. And who knows, maybe the 40 spread actually will sort of make up for the slightly weaker 120 base damage here. But yeah, this card's actually like not awful. Could maybe be a one of in certain lightning decks over the years while Flaffy is legal. So yeah, not awful. Alrighty guys, so next up we have Cham V. Cham's actually, I think, a really interesting card. It's a rapid strike Pokemon, but it has this attack, put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. If your opponent's Pokemon is knocked out by this attack at the end of your turn, you can take another turn, but you can't use this if any of your Pokemon use this attack on your previous turn. So that's actually a pretty wild attack, being able to get an entire other turn. I mean, one of the last cards that did something like this was Dialga GX, and that was its GX attack. You know, these powerful attacks you can only use once in an entire game that allows you to take an extra turn. So yeah, that can't really be undersold how solid this secondary effect here is. You know, it is very restrictive. Of course, you have to do exactly 2 damage counters or 1 damage counter to take a knockout. But I think actually with Urshifu, this could be good, because one of the things I have noticed about Rapid Strike Urshifu is that a lot of times your math doesn't quite work out in the way that you want it to. Like, I mean, the Dedenne GX is a great example where sometimes, like, even if you have like a telescopic sight, Gmax Rapid Flow is only doing 150 and you might not actually take a knockout, and it's going to be just shy. So something like Medicham could be good to come in on the following turn to finish off some of those KOs for you and get you another turn in the process, plus some cards that you're going to draw off your prizes as well. So I actually do like Medicham. I think it's one of the more interesting cards we've seen so far. All right, next up we have Dragonite B. This is a card I'm somewhat familiar with. We took a look at this back in the reveal video I did for when Dragon types came back to the TCG. But I don't remember Dragonite being particularly great. So its first attack, 50, goes through any effects on your opponent's active. And that's our attack, 2 water and lightning, 250, just 20 to each of your own bench Pokemon. Yeah, I think this card's pretty bad. I'm not gonna lie. 250 is progressively worse and worse. Especially since this card is releasing right around the time that we're about to lose tag teams. 250 really effectively is no different than like 170 at that point. And you can't accelerate energy to this with Frostmoth. So yeah, I guess you can use Melanie, but yeah, card just seems pretty weak overall. And doing 20 to your own bench Pokemon, yeah, if this was 250 and then 20 spread to your opponents, maybe I would consider this more, but I don't think Dragonite is doing too good right now. Alright guys, so we have a new Salamence. This is going to be a single prizer. Let me take a look at this art. Yeah, Salamence looks pretty sweet here. The Salamence is a Pokemon historically doesn't get the best cards in the TCG, so I am kind of skeptical how this one's going to turn out. But let's see. Ability, once during your turn, you may have your opponent switch their active with one of their bench Pokemon, and then 100, then 120 more if this Pokemon has any damage counters on it. Yeah, not too excited for this, I guess. I mean, there are ways at getting this powered up, but you're going to need to play either something like Frostlass or Welder in addition to your attachment for turn, and you need something like an Old Cemetery or a Spike Myth to help you get damage on this thing. Now, I guess you could play Spiritomb and Jinx as well, but yeah, it's just a lot of hoops to jump through to do this attack, and you're a stage 2 on top of it. Yeah, well, before I get too negative, guys, again, we should wait to see the trainers. Dragon type is going to be one of the big focuses of these 2 sets, so there might be something to help get this powered up a little bit easier. But right now, based off what I've seen, this seems like a very clunky attack. The ability also is like fine. It's just Fione on a stage 2. I really wish this allowed you to choose. That would be substantially better. kind of underwhelming, but this is like close to being a decent one prize card, but just, I think it's just like narrowly too clunky. But next up, guys, we have one of the big mascots of the set. It's going to be Rayquaza VMAX. I imagine most of you guys are probably familiar with both these cards by now. Yeah, they have actually very similar attacks to the Rayquaza V. 20, you may discard up to 2 basic fire or lightning energies, then just 80 more for each energy discarded in this way. So Rayquaza VMAX is the same, but it does not limit the amount that you can discard. So obviously, Rayquaza VMAX is going to be a one-shotting machine, but the big thing with Rayquaza that makes it so good, in addition to this attack, is this ability. You can discard your hand and draw 3, and this stack. So if you have 4 Rayquaza VMAX, you can actually do this and draw 12 cards, plus a research for turn to draw another 7, plus Deandre if you want to keep getting crazy with it. But yeah, Rayquaza VMAX is pretty insane. This seems like pretty much a home run. It seems like just like a better version of Single Strike Urshifu. And what I mean by that is both cards kind of are aiming for a similar thing. They're both these VMAXs that just nuke anything in its path. They use stage 1 support Pokemon. But in the case of Rayquaza, it has a built-in consistency engine. And also you don't have to play things like Urn of Vitality to get powered back up. Your Flaffy already does that for you. But yeah, card is good. There's not a whole lot to say. You can play Flaffy, you can play this with Rose. I guess you could play Welder as well if you really want to, though I'm not sold that that's the best route to go. But yeah, Rayquaza VMAX, absolute insane card. Definitely, I think, going to be one of the best ones from the set. So we have a Rapid Strike Zygarde. And Zygarde, you choose one of your opponent's Pokemon. There's 40 for each prize card your opponent has already taken. Yep, this is pretty weak. This, I think, really needs to be closer to like 60. Because if your opponent's taken 5 prize cards, you're doing 200, which, granted, is enough to knock out a Deandre or a Crobat or something like that at the end of a game. But yeah, this card's just pretty worthless until then. And even 200 isn't enough to knock out 2 prize Pokemon V. So yeah, I think this really does need to be 50, or I mean, I would like 60, but I think 50 is really what would have to be at the bare minimum for me to consider this thing. But I say 60 because that would help knock out tag teams in the late game. But yeah, Zygarde's pretty weak. I will say you can power it up with Cham, which is a thing, I guess, but yeah, not too great. So Turtonair, this was another card that did get revealed early, has the Shell Trap attack for a firefighting does 30, and if this Pokemon is damaged by an attack next turn, put 8 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. So yeah, it kind of is like a spiritual successor to the Turtonator GX, and if you want to get cute, you can play things like Giant Bomb to make your opponent take a ton of damage whenever they attack into you, but yeah, I don't think this is doing quite enough, especially in the case of Turtonator GX. It had some other really good attacks in addition to its like defensive attack, whereas this just has a vanilla 80 attack in addition. So Turtonator, not too great, but it is kind of cool to see them pay homage to the Turtonator GX of the past. All right, so next up we have Flapple, another card that did get revealed early. 50 for each of your opponent's Pokemon play with an ability. So this is basically like the old Weavile from Ultra Prism, which was actually a pretty good card. Now, I will say Weavile was in a format where Pokemon, or it was popular back when Pokemon capped out at around 230, 240 HP. I mean, HPs are way higher right now. I think this will really need to be closer to 60 times to have more of a shot in a format with Pokemon VMAX running around. But still not an awful attack, and then 80 plus 80 if your opponent's active is a Pokemon V. So I don't think its attack is awful either, to be honest though, just because this can two-shot Pokemon V and V, or Pokemon V Max, I should say, and it's pretty easy to get powered up. You can play Welder or Cham to get this thing powered up in a single turn. So I actually don't think Flapple is totally awful, if I'm just being honest. I think as long as ADP is still in the format, I think a card like this is probably too slow. But after ADP rotates, I actually think there is some merit to trying to build around this. Of course, we have Appleton in the format to gust stuff. There is a Flapple with an Applin in format with a good defensive attack. So I might actually keep my eye on this card. I don't think it's awful. Whole evolution line, Love Ball, searchable as well. So this might be one of my pet projects from Evolving Skies whenever this drops. We'll see. but not an awful card. All right, guys, next up we have Appleton. Makes sense, we have a Flapple here as well. 70 for each special energy attached to your opponent's Pokemon, and then 80 plus 80 if your opponent's active is a Pokemon V. So same second attack as Flapple, which is fine. Like I said, that 2 shots Pokemon V and VMAX. But first attack, I mean, how many special energies realistically are going to be on our opponent's active? You know, things like Rapid Strike, Urshifu discard their energy. So whenever they do play a Rapid Strike energy, it's going to hit the discard pile anyways. So yeah, I mean, they really need like 3 or 4 special energies to really be hitting for a decent amount. And I don't think we're going to get there most of the time. So I think this is actually probably a little bit worse than Flapple, unfortunately. So I think I like Flapple better out of the 2. Okay, so next up we have another Reggie getting their first card. It's going to be Reggie Drago. So it says 240 minus 20 for each damage counter on this Pokemon. I mean, if I'm just being honest, this thing isn't awful. You can set this up with either Rillaboom or Cham. And I think most of the time you're really not worried about your damage getting reduced because this thing has 130 HP. I mean, there's not much that's not knocking you out at this point. So I think most of the time this is just a single prize card that does 240, which is really solid, I think, even in a format with something like ADP, just because you can still one-shot everything that's in ADP outside of the ADP. And that would normally be, I think, the main thing keeping a card like this in check. So I have to say, I actually kind of like this card, believe it or not. This will definitely be a single prize deck I try to, try out. But yeah, guys, with Cham, you can just throw down your 2 grass energies, then attach your fire energy from hand per turn as well. Or I guess if you want to go the Rillaboom route, like I said as well, you can get your 2 grass energies from deck and then attach fire for turn. Of course, Rillaboom, its acceleration is better, but it's a stage 2, so that's going to be the trade-off. But yeah, I think this card does warrant some exploration. I do like this. All right, so next up we have Burslie, and I do vaguely remember this. There is a new gimmicky deck. It's going to be coming out of this set with the Everybody Rollout attack. But Burslie has a really sick ability. Each of your Pokemon with an Everybody Rollout attack takes no damage from VMAXs, which is kind of cool. It turns all of your Pokemon into a Zamazenta V. And with Pokemon VMAX actually becoming more and more popular, especially as tag teams are on their way out around the time when this card drops, this actually is a really good ability, I do have to say. Now, the attack, Everybody Roll Out, this 20 times the amount of your bench Pokemon that has this attack. So that's kind of the issue though. This is capping out only around like 100. Now, to be fair, I'm not sure if all of the attacks that have this are the same. Let's actually just check really quick. So everybody, okay, roll. So we have a Jigglypuff that's the same. We have a Wooloo. We have Sandshrew. Sandshrew can actually hit stuff for weakness. So this that might not be awful. Okay, yeah. My issue still with this is that your damage output is horrendous. Burslie can attack for Triple Excel, but the issue is we're going to be losing Triple Excel around when this comes out. Now, luckily, the basic attackers like Jigglypuff and Sandshrew can attack for a twin energy, so that's good. Jigglypuff can hit for weakness. Wooloo can't. You'd probably still play it. But yeah, Sandshrew and Jigglypuff definitely seem like the best of the attackers here. I just really wish we had a way at compounding our damage output here a little bit more. So I don't know, maybe this attack on, or this ability on Burslie will sort of carry this archetype. I'm not sure, but it definitely seems like one to keep an eye on, if nothing else. All right, getting into some of the trainers, we have Lucky Popsicle, heal 20, and then flip a coin of heads, return this card to your hand instead of discarding it. 20 less damage, or I'm sorry, 10 less damage than Potion, but you might be able to get it back and heal again. It's effectively like 40 on a flip, if you want to think about it that way. My gut tells me this is bad, but I think this is kind of cool though. Like if you're playing 4 Lucky Popsicles and one of your Pokemon gets attacked, your opponent's going for a 2-shot, being able to heal like theoretically 160, I can't help but be tempted to try this. So yeah, I kind of do want to give this a whirl, but it's a coin flip, so it might not wind up working out. But yeah, I might get baited into at least trying to make, you know, 4 of these in a deck, flipping heads over and over happen. We'll see. It's probably bad, but it seems fun if nothing else. So we have Toy Catcher. Switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with 50 HP or less with their active. So I mean, this is like super broken against like Mad Party, but I guess most decks this isn't doing too much. You know, I guess if you're a deck that does frequently hit for awkward numbers on things and isn't taking one-shots, Toy Catcher could be sort of good. So Toy Catcher, I think this card has some potential, but I think Boss Zora's by and large is still going to be the definitely going to be the go-to for gusting effects still. So we have Rubber Gloves. It does look like Pokemon and Creatures Inc. are intent on giving us one of these for every type in the game. I think they're way too specific most of the time to really see play. I don't think it's going to change with this Lightning one either. So maybe one of these will see play eventually, but yeah, I'm still not the hugest fan of these. So we have a new Rapid Strike scroll. This one, of course, when it's attached to a Rapid Strike Pokemon, they can use this attack. Fire Lightning, discard 2 energy, does 90 to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. Yeah, not a big fan of this personally. I mean, 90 Snipe is kind of okay just if this was printed on something, but I'm not running this tool card to do the same thing, guys. So I'm probably going to pass on this one. All right, so we have Underworld Mask. This is, I think, kind of an interesting card. It says, if the Pokemon this card is attached to is in the active and damaged by an attack, your opponent chooses a card from their hand and discards it. But yeah, this card seems cool. I'm not sure if it's going to see play or not, but it kind of reminds me of Rugged Helmet that we just got in Chilling Reign, where yes, it is kind of a reactive tool card and it can be tool scrappered out of play before it even gets used. But I mean, getting rid of cards from your opponent's hand, especially discard, not shuffling them back in, but discarding them is pretty solid. Now, I guess on the other hand though, there are a lot of decks that like discarding things like Mad Party or Rayquaza VMAX. It's coming out of the same set. So maybe this won't be as good as I'm thinking, but I kind of like this. I think this does warrant some exploration. I could definitely see this in like control decks too, at some point. So yeah, I think this card has potential. All right, so dust off your old promo full art Shauna's. Shauna is getting a reprint here. Just shuffle your hand into your deck and draw 5. Unfortunately, though, I don't think this card is that great. I think by and large, this is going to be kind of a similar effect to Marnie, but Marnie also has the added disruption for your opponent. So I don't think Shauna is too good. Now you could make a case to maybe play this in like single prize, like stage 2 decks, but I think Bruno is generally going to be a little bit better. So yeah, I mean, this is fine to have, but guys, I really wish this was a Cynthia reprint. Like if this was Cynthia, we would definitely have this seeing play. Cynthia is actually one of my favorite supporters of all time. I think it's one of those cards that just should always be in format and never get rotated. It's like that solid of a card. And also disproportionately helps the stage 2 evolution decks I love so much. So yeah, Shauna being 5 instead of 6, I think is just enough to make this card not see play. So we have Schoolboy, draw 2 cards. If your opponent has 5, 3, or 1 prize remaining, draw 2 more. This card is a gimmick. Don't think this is good whatsoever. Pass. But we do have Insidious Resolve. So you must discard 2 cards from your hand in order to play this, then draw 1 card for each of your opponent's Pokemon in play. So obviously you guys can see they are trying to push this as like your go-to supporter for your Rayquaza decks out there. You can discard your energy, draw cards. And I don't think Zinnia's is awful, to be honest. I think this is a card that realistically I could see maybe seeing play as like a 1 to 2 of. It's not a card you want to see turn 1. You want to see it maybe by like turn 3, something like that. But if your opponent has 6 Pokemon in play, discard 2 to draw 6. Not too bad at all, especially if you're going against Eternatus. This is also pretty good. So yeah, I think Zinnias is a card probably to keep on hand. Not a 4 of, more than likely in your decks, but I think this will maybe pop up in some capacity. And we have Stormy Range, which looks to be the last of our trainer cards. So it's kind of like a Brooklet Hill reprint, but instead it's Lightning or Dragon Pokemon. So you can search your deck for a basic Lightning or Dragon Pokemon, put it on your bench. Straightforward. You guys can see what they're trying to push here. You can search your deck for your Rayquazas or your Mareeps and hopefully get set up that way. So I'm actually not sure if this is going to actually be the go-to supporter for Rayquaza. I actually think Viridian Forest is a pretty strong contender alongside this. I don't know, maybe we'll even see both be run in some counts, but yeah, this is definitely, after rotation, right now, I think looking to be one of the better stadiums for Rayquaza. But right now, it is going to be tough competition between this and Viridian Forest. So that is going to be it for the first set, but heading into Towering Perfection, we have a Suicun V. This ability says, once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in the active, you may use this ability and draw a card. And then its attack, 20 plus 20 more for each bench Pokemon, both yours and your opponent's. Okay. So, you know, if both you and your opponent have full benches, you're doing 220. You can't one-shot a Zacian if your opponent doesn't max out their bench. That seems pretty bad. I mean, just, I guess 200, or probably, you know, you're going to be in the 180 to 220 range, I think, with this card, or I think maybe 200, 180 to 200, because your opponent isn't always going to max out their bench. That for 2 isn't awful, so maybe you could play this in like a Frostmoth deck, or in your Melanie decks out there, just to go for a nice little 2-shot with a 2-prizer instead of like a Ice Rider Calyrex. So I think there is an argument to be made for that. The ability is also kind of solid as well. So I don't know. I think at best, this will be a one-of in your Ice Rider or Calyrex decks, but I'm not expecting a whole lot from this card. Alright guys, so we have a Ludicolo, it looks like. When you play this Pokemon from your hand, you may use this ability. During this turn, the attacks of your basic Pokemon do 100 more to your opponent's active. Whoa, okay. Alright, so let's try to think what deck wants to play this. I think maybe like Zacian decks might want to try to play this. That seems interesting. Like, I think more than likely they're pushing this to make it so that this card fixes your math to make your basic Pokemon knock out VMAXs. But I think my issue with this is that Bayonet already kind of does the same thing, but better. It de-evolves your opponent's Pokemon. And like, if you're already a card that can hit for 220 plus, I mean, Bayonet's a stage 1. This is a stage 2. So I'll let you guys be the judge of which you rather play. I mean, Ludicolo, the upside to it is you knock them out right then and there in the moment. Bayonet, you do have to attack into, then use its ability on a following turn, which runs the risk of them healing or something like that. So that is an issue. But I think I would probably take my chances with that and just enjoy my extra deck space that I'm going to be allowed instead of playing this Ludicolo. So this is actually a cool ability, but yeah, not the biggest fan of it overall though. All right, next up we have Galerion Articuno, the first of the single prize bird trio here. All these cards kind of do something similar, but their attacks are a little bit different if I remember right. But in the case of Articuno, whenever you bench it from hand, you can attach 2 Psychic Energy from hand to this Pokemon. So I actually really like this ability. Of course, Shadow Rider Calyrex is going to be the big one that you guys are probably thinking of. Or even Alchemy VMAX, to be honest. Like, that doesn't seem awful either. Like, I mean, if you're playing Alchemy, you're probably already playing Shadow Rider, more than likely. But, I mean, there is a world, or I guess an argument you could make to cut Shadow Rider out of Alchemy VMAX and just play like 4 of these scoop up nets and like energy retrievals and stuff like that. Doesn't seem awful to me, but its attack here as well, Psychic 2 colors, discard all Psychic Energy from this Pokemon, does 1 in 20 to a bench Pokemon. Not too great, but this ability, like I said, is really going to be the star of the show. Of course, this basically reads plus 60 if you are playing Shadow Rider Calyrex, or plus 120 in the case of Alchemy VMAX. So yeah, I think this card is pretty cool. I'm definitely expecting it to see some experimentation in those styles of decks. All right, so we have a single strike Wobbuffet, it appears. It says, choose one of your bench Pokemon, count the number of damage counters on that Pokemon, and put the same number of damage counters on your opponent's active. Okay, I mean, this is actually like kind of cool. I think obviously you would have to be playing this in some sort of single strike VMAX deck. You know, because you need Pokemon that can take a hit. And VMAX is obviously going to be the best way to do that. So, I mean, this actually doesn't seem horrible because, like, let's say you're playing Urshifu, single strike Urshifu, your opponent swings on you, you retreat, And instead of coming in for like a 2-shot with another Urshifu, you can come in and with a Wobbuffet and do a pretty sizable chunk of damage. And so as long as your opponent doesn't boss something, this attack is actually pretty good. I think whenever I'm building any sort of like single strike VMAX deck, this is a card I'm going to keep in the back of my mind for sure. It kind of fills a similar role as the scroll that we have, Scroll of Scorn, I think is the one. But, you know, this is a Pokemon, you can search it out with Quick Ball. The scroll cards, you're going to need stuff like Skyla or Greens and stuff like that to search out those sorts of, items or trainer cards. So this might be an easier way at doing kind of the same thing, while only giving up 1 prize in the process, which is pretty cool as well. So yeah, I think Wobbuffet has some degree of potential as a 1-up in certain decks. All right, so we have a Golurk V. I think this one did get revealed early because I do vaguely remember this thing. All right, so Mega Punch does 80, and then Rewind Beam, Psychic, Colorless, 180. If your opponent's active is an evolved Pokemon, remove the highest stage evolution card to de-evolve it and return that to your opponent's hand. Okay, I kind of like this, guys. So it kind of ties into what I was just talking about with the Ludicolo and the Bayonet we were talking about. This is 180, which is a 2-shot on Pokemon VMAX, but since this is a single strike card, we can actually buff its damage up to 220. And suddenly Golurk gets a little bit more threatening, because now effectively every time we attack, we take 1-shots on VMAXs. Granted, when they get de-evolved, they're only going to go up 2 prizes, but being able to wipe a fully powered up fresh VMAX off the board and get rid of a ton of resources can be really good. So of course you can play Houndoom to get this set up. I think one of the issues though is it does need 2 Psychic Energy, which could be an issue. Like, you could just cut Houndoom and play stuff like Shadow Rider Calyrex, but then at that point you can't as reliably 1-shot VMAXs once you de-evolve them. So I think you need to just play Houndoom and just kind of suck it up and, preemptively get down a Psychic Energy, and then the next turn go Psychic, 2 single strike energies, and you're good to go. I kind of wish this was Psychic 3 colors. That would be a little bit more flexible for us, but yeah, I think this card actually is kind of decent. You could play Turbo Patch with it if you want to try to get it powered up in a single turn, or like Galerion Articuno plus energy switches. So yeah, I think Golurk is a cool card. I'm not sure, but yeah, I think this attack actually does have some potential here. All right, guys, next we have a Pumpkaboo. This is another card that did get revealed early, but whenever you play it from hand to your bench, you may discard a Stadium in play. So it's a little bit worse than Marshadow, because Marshadow you can just keep on your bench and discard whenever you want. This you do have to play it immediately, but the trade-off is that you don't actually have to discard Pumpkaboo, which means you can play Scoop Up Nets and stuff like that to reuse this. So I think this is actually a pretty powerful ability that we have. I would definitely expect us to see play, especially after when Marshadow rotates. And we do have a Gourgeist to go along with this. 60. Reveal the top 6 cards of your deck. This does 60 more for each psychic Pokemon you find there. Then shuffle those Pokemon cards back into your deck and discard the other cards. Yeah, I gotta say this seems really gimmicky, guys. I know we can hit for 360 in theory, which is great, but I think you really have to play just an absolute insane amount of psychic Pokemon to make this happen, and I don't really think there's a great way at getting, like, chaining these Gourgeists every turn while also keeping your deck packed of Pokemon, because not only do you need Gourgeist and other Pokemon, you need energy to power this thing up, so things like Twin Energy or maybe Triple Excel, trainer cards to find your Pokemon, etc. So yeah, this seems pretty weak to me. It's like almost good, but it's just a lot to ask for. This really needs to be like closer to like 80 for each one, because I think it's just going to be too difficult to get 6 Pokemon here to be psychic Pokemon. It just seems really tricky. All right, guys, we have Galarian Zapdos. So much like with Articuno, whenever you bench Galarian Zapdos, you can do 2 fighting energy from hand, and then its attack for fighting colors to 70, and you may discard all energy attached to this Pokemon. If you do, your opponent's active is now paralyzed. So yeah, I think this is a fair bit weaker than the other two birds. The attack, I mean, auto paralysis is kind of okay, like I mentioned when talking about Toxtricity, but we're in a format where every deck is playing Force Switch or, you know, pretty close to that. So yeah, for 3 energy, you do 70. God, that's a hard case to be made, even if you are powering yourself up. And then just in general, I think there's less of a need for Pokemon on your bench with fighting energy. Like, yeah, I know you can do this, then like E-switch over to like your Urshifus or something like that. But I almost would rather play like Galerian Moltres if I want to do something like that. Just because Moltres can reuse that energy every time you discard it. And Urshifu has colorless energy and its attack cost. So I think Zapdos is pretty bad for the moment. But who knows, there might be something in this set that I'm unaware of. That makes a good case for this card. But based on what we've seen so far in this set, I'm not too impressed. All right, so we have Hariyama. And I do vaguely remember this card too. I think this got an early reveal. But this ability is pretty good. Whenever this Pokemon is knocked out by damage from an attack, flip a coin. If heads, the defending Pokemon isn't knocked out and its HP becomes 10 instead. So that's a pretty good ability for a single prize Pokemon, I have to say. And the fact that it's a single strike Pokemon means that we actually can buff this otherwise kind of weak damage output. And yeah, hopefully go for some 2-shots. Now, with 2 single strike energies, that is only 140, which is good for tag teams, but for VMAXs, that is going to be a little bit weak. You really do need like a 3rd single strike energy. So maybe you are still playing a 4/4 Houndoom in an attempt to buff yourself up to 160. So yeah, I think this ability alone is kind of the thing that makes a case for this card. I think otherwise you just wouldn't play something like this. This is pretty cool because in theory, you can just keep flipping heads over and over. I mean, granted, we're talking about coin flips, so you could equally just flip tails every time. But I do like this ability. I think this is actually kind of solid. So I'll mess with Hariyama. It's probably not the best card in the set, but the ability is good. Alrighty guys, so we have Lycanroc VMAX. This is going to be, again, I think this is another one that did get revealed ahead of time because for some reason I do remember the art on this. But 320 HP, fighting energy, choose one of your opponent's Pokemon play with 60 HP or less. A Pokemon is now knocked out. Okay. Okay, not a bad attack for just a single fighting energy. Then its other attack, 2 fighting, colorless 190, just 30 to 1 of your opponent's bench Pokemon. Alright. So second attack is also fine. It's just a solid little 2-shotting attack. But I do kind of like this because it sets up math nicely on your, like, not only are you 2-shotting VMAXs, which is fine. It's kind of what you want to do anyways. But the math actually works out to where you can pick off 2 prize Pokemon like Zacian with the bench sniping effect. So 190 is normally a 2-shot, but with the 30 damage, you can play an Escape Rope or a Boss and pick off something like a damaged Zacian or whatever it might be on the bench that way. So yeah, I actually do like Lycanroc's ability to be able to do a really good job at picking off damaged Pokemon, because frequently, you know, when you're going for a 2-shot, your opponent is going to retreat to the bench, try to deny you those prize cards, but between this second attack, which you can play Telescopic Sight with, I do want to point that out too. Between that or this first attack, you actually have pretty good ways at picking off stuff. So I actually think I like Lycanroc here. The issue with this card, however, is that it takes fighting energy, and fighting doesn't have the best energy acceleration right now. Like we have B or Bia, I never know how you pronounce that card, but that's a thing. We have Galerian Zapdos, so maybe you play Galerian Zapdos with this to try to cheat some energies in play and do energy switch shenanigans and all of that. Or there's just Rose and Cricketune. That also seems kind of okay to me. I don't mind that either. So yeah, if we can get Lycanroc powered up, I think this is actually not a horrible card. I think both these attacks are kind of okay. So I'll experiment with this, but if this card doesn't see play, it probably will be due to this clunky attack cost. Alright guys, so we have Galerian Moltres. This is the last of the single prize bird trio. Much like with the other ones, whenever you bench it from hand, you attach 2 dark energies to it. So yeah, needless to say, this is kind of decent. I mean, we already have Galerian Moltres V in the format, which already does kind of a similar thing, but I think there is a case to be made to maybe playing this in Eternatus. I'll say this, if Eternus VMAX ever evolves as a deck to where it kind of wants like a heavy scoop up net engine again, I think Galerian Moltres could make a case over something like the VMAX, just because if you already need scoop up nets for things like Zigzagoons or whatever it might be that you're playing a scoop up nets for, this might be a little bit better, just because you can obviously keep reusing this after you E-switch. Let's check out the attack. 2 dark and a colorless is 20. Plus 50 for each prize card your opponent's already taken. Okay, now this is actually a good attack though. So if your opponent's taken 5 prizes, that's 270. Obviously that's good against the tag teams while we still have them. But even still, this could be a decent late game hitter for Eternus. And Eternus really doesn't have a great hard hitting single prize backup attacker. Like Spirit Tomb has probably been the closest thing it's had, but Spirit Tomb, you know, it doesn't hit quite this hard. This can even knock out things like Zacians, Pikirams, etc. Pretty easily in the late game. So, I don't know, maybe this sees play. I mean, also, let's talk about expanded. Obviously, there's Turbo Dark, which is still kind of a thing. We even have, in standard format, we have Greninja Zoroark GX for the moment, which might like something like this. So, yeah, there's a couple things out there that might be eyeing this down. Of course, like I mentioned though, Galerian Moltres V is already a thing, so there is inherently some competition there between the cards. But I still like this. I think there's a chance this could see some play too. Alrighty guys, we have Garbodor V and Garbodor VMAX. Was not expecting to see these at all here. Garbodor V doesn't appear to be too good. Let's check out the VMAX. So 330 HP. Let's see, fighting weakness, kind of annoying, but the ability, this Pokemon can have 2 tool cards attached to it. If this ability stops working, discard tools until there is 1 left. And then Dark, colorless 120. Your opponent's active is now poison and can't retreat during their next turn. Okay, so this ability is pretty cool. I think this is definitely the more attractive part about Garbodor. And when I see this, I'm thinking of my boy Whimsicott. Like, I love the Whimsicott deck so much that came out back in Vivid Voltage. And this definitely could be good because, you know, you want to discard your tool cards. If we run through the math, I'm pretty sure Whimsicott's 10 plus 40 for each tool card you discard. So if you discard all 6 from your Pokemon play, what, 250 is what you're doing? But now that you have Garbodor, you can actually scale your damage up in a way that one-shots VMAXs, which that gets a little bit exciting. So that's my first thought. I'm going to play this with Whimsicott. I know we're losing U-turn board, but for that like brief, like 2-week window that normally happens right before rotation where our summer set is legal for Worlds and everything for like a week, this could make Whimsicott a more attractive single prize deck while we still have U-turn board in the format. So yeah, I'm actually kind of anxious to experiment with this. Now, as an attacker, I don't know how I feel about this Garbodor here. Like 120 poison, can't retreats, nothing great to be honest. You know, I've said this a couple times already in this little first impressions video. Switch is everywhere. I mean, your opponent can pretty easily switch out of this, and 120 is not enough for a 2-shot unless you're playing some other backup attacker to come in and finish off your opponent's active after you've done this. I think you would really need to play something like Toxicroak or something like that to bump this up to like 160-ish damage, because 120 is just not enough, I hate to say. Well, I guess if you're playing this as an attacker, you could play the Rocky Helmet reprint. So you can play 2 of those, and whenever your opponent attacks into you, that can fix your math to a 2-shot on VMAXs. Or Giant Bomb. You can do 2 Giant Bombs, which is actually hilarious. So I don't know. Maybe the ability makes this a better attack. The more I'm thinking about it. I don't know. I think Garbodor VMAX is a really cool card, though. I think this has a lot of potential for experimentation. So I'm a fan. Whimsicott is definitely what I am most anxious to try this out in, though. Okay, so we have Thievul. And I remember some people were talking about this card. Whenever you play this from hand to evolve a Pokemon, you may have each player shuffle their hand, put it at the bottom of their deck, then draw 4 cards. So the big comparison people were drawing to this card was the parallel between this and the Let Loose Marshadow back from Shining Legends. But honestly, guys, I don't think this is anywhere near that card just because Marshadow was a basic that you could play down turn 1 as soon as turn 1 if you wanted to. And this is a stage 1, so this is naturally going to be a little bit clunkier. You can't just easily splash this into your deck. And if you're playing this, guys, I don't think you're ever really playing like a 1/1. I think this is minimum a 2/2 line in your deck. But in terms of like what deck would actually play this, I mean, I don't even know if I'm just being honest. Like, yeah, you can play an Eternus. That's like an easy one. But you already have Crobat V, so I don't think there is a great case to be made for Thievul. Like I mean, I guess you could play it. Like, I was actually just talking earlier about if Eternus ever wants to play a scoop up net engine, you play Moltres. Maybe you go back to playing scoop up nets with Moltres and Thievul to be able to reuse this. I don't know. That probably seems like the most likely deck that you'd play this in. But it is still a good ability. Non-supporter based draw is like almost always good. So we'll have to see what happens with this card. But I do think this is interesting. All right, so next up we have Altaria. This is another card that I think most of the community is probably a little familiar with at this point. But you search your deck for a supporter, put it on top. So of course we can use a Oranguru to draw the supporter we just put on top of our deck. So definitely seems like an easy combo to do, which I don't hate. So yeah, you need that boss for game. Just play your Altaria, Primate Wisdom it into your hand, then do what you gotta do. But yeah, I think it's cool. Another thing I do like about this, it actually enables a lot of the like techier, like one-off supporters that you might want to play. Like, think of something like Karen's Conviction. It's kind of a cool card, but it's not really a card that you really ever want in high counts. But when you're playing it in low counts, it's kind of hard to find. So I think one good thing about Altaria, it might make these sorts of cards a little bit more viable, which I'm actually excited for. That is one thing I do miss a lot about like Tapu Lele GX or Jirachi EX, is that they made these sort of like supporters that you don't play in 3 and 4 counts much more viable, and I think that's a good thing. You know, there's so many supporters that get printed that just never see play because they're not a 4 of in your deck. So Altaria, cool card. I think it's going to breathe potentially some new life into some other supporters that we have in the game right now too. So we have Dialga. It's a single strike dragon. 80 if the depending Pokemon is a Pokemon V, can't attack. All right, so if we power this thing up 3 single strike energies, that's 140. I mean, with a single prize card, I don't hate this that much. Like, yes, they can just switch, but I mean, I guess they can retreat as well. So, yeah, maybe this is bad. You're not two-shotting VMAXs either, so yeah, maybe this just isn't good. We have Hydreigon, also another card that we did get revealed a good bit ago, but 20 plus 100 more for each prize card your opponent took during their previous turn. So yeah, it's a cool attack. Like if your opponent's an ADP and they took like a knockout on a VMAX, in theory you could take or do 420 damage. Insane. However, I don't think that's gonna happen like almost ever. So yeah, I think really this card is best in 3 prize decks like VMAXs, but you're not playing a stage 2 in your VMAX deck, so probably going to be a pass on Hydreigon. We got Kyurem or Kyurem, water metal, 60, discard any water energy from your Pokemon, the 60 for each card you discarded in this way. Now, I actually do like this attack, but it's kind of awkward to get powered up because we have Frostmoth, but Frostmoth is only for water Pokemon. So that kind of leaves us with Frostlass, which we can play. It does have synergy. Frostlass is going to accelerate water energy, you know, from our discard. So that definitely has synergy. Probably play like a 4/4 Frostlass, scoop up nets. Turbo Patch even doesn't seem awful. So, well, you know, the more I'm talking about it right here, like the less awful it seems. It definitely seems clunky though. I think you'll probably need scoop up nets, turbo patches, and maybe EXP shares to constantly chain your metal energy. Seems like a lot to ask for, but an unlimited damage cap on a single prize Pokemon is something I do like. So I'm going to experiment with this card, but my knee-jerk reaction is that it's probably too clunky to keep chaining these attacks, I think. Alright guys, next up we have my homie Noivern V, one of my favorite Pokemon all time. Noivern V, it's like an okay card. But yeah, like I'm not sold that this is going to be tier 1, but I really do like this card, and I'm 100% going to cover it on the channel. There's 20 to each of your opponent's Pokemon. Then other attacks, Psychic, Dark, 60 plus 120 if you and your opponent have the same number of cards in your hands. So the first attack with Telescopic Sight, of course, guys, you can do 50 to everything. After something like ADP rotates, this card gets a little bit better because you're not, you're on less of a clock to spread. And that's the thing with cards like this. You need a bunch of turns to spread your damage. But I like the fact that this has like a nice cleanup attack as well. One of the issues with a lot of these spreading Pokemon in the past is that a lot of times you just don't have enough turns to win. And if you're put on a clock to take a quick knockout to wrap up your game, a lot of times you don't have that option. So I do like that there is a nice sort of attack like that built in here to maybe help you out with that a little bit easier. Yeah, Mew is everywhere, so that's an issue. But I will say this, we have not seen a single bench protecting card so far in this set, and Mew's about to rotate like within a couple of weeks after this set being legal, more than likely. So, or even maybe when it releases, I forget. I know the release schedules for sets this year are a little bit weird. So, point is, Mew's going to be less of an issue for most of the life of this card. So right now, this attack actually might go unchecked. Fun card, it's just probably not tier 1 though. See, Drampa, kind of another dragon that is paying a little bit of tribute to its GX counterpart, has the Berserk attack, 70 plus 90 if any of your bench Pokemon have damage counters on them. So pretty much like the old Drampa GX. Now Drampa GX released in a much different format than this. Things are very different today. But yeah, 160, it's a fine number to hit for. You two-shot most things, but yeah, kind of clunky to get up and running. I don't know what deck is looking to play this, and I don't think you're building around this, so probably going to be a pass from me personally, but not like the worst card in the world either, though. Alright guys, so getting into the other like big mascot from this set, that's going to be Duraludon. Base form Duraludon doesn't look too special to me. But the VMAX, 330 HP, the ability to prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from each of your opponents, Pokemon that has special energy. Really solid ability here. We've seen Pokemon like this over the years, like Aegis/EX, just as an example. Yeah, ability, pretty solid. Special energies are pretty popular right now. And its attack, fighting, metal, 220, goes through any effects on your opponent. So I do like this attack. It obviously deals with one prizers, even the one prize wall Pokemon like the Decidueye out there. It one-shots 2 prizers and just goes for kind of a comfortable 2-shot on your 3 prizers out there, which is totally fine, I think, most of the time, especially when you have a good defensive ability like this. The big issue with this card, however, is that it has a clunky attack cost. Being single strike means, yes, you can use Houndoom to get the fighting energy, but the metal energy is really going to be the awkward part about this. But I will point out, we do have a metal Duraludon V still in format back from Champion's Path. So actually, if you are looking to play Duraludon VMAX, I think it would be good maybe to pick up some of the metal ones, because that means you can metal saucer to them. So that definitely seems like a way to get this powered up. We still have Rose and Cricketune. Obviously, you can go that route too. But yeah, Duraludon here, it's definitely not quite as exciting as something like Rayquaza VMAX, but I think this card is also kind of solid in its own right. Pretty bad against the Rayquaza deck though, just because they're probably not running much special energy there. But yeah, against things like Rapid Strike Urshifu and other decks that are playing like the Rapid and Single Strike energies, and also things like Speed Lightning, the Horror Psychic, etc. Yeah, it's going to be good for a card like Duraludon VMAX. And getting into our final batch of trainers, we have Swap Cup, switch a card from your hand with the top card of your deck. Obviously, they're pushing this with the Altaria that is in the same like subset here. But we have a Rangaroo still, guys. I mean, as long as we have a Rangaroo, I don't see really an incentive to play this, because a Rangaroo, you can easily find it when you need it, and it can just sit on your bench to get repeated uses. Whereas this, you have to find a way to find this, and also play multiple to get repeated use. So probably not too good. We have Rescue Trolley. Choose up to 2 Pokemon with 90 HP or less from discard. Reveal them, put them into your hand. Okay. I actually do like this. This is pretty nice. So this actually could be a decent recovery card for you know, decks like Mad Party, if you do need to get another Poltegeist set up kind of in a pinch to keep drawing cards. So I actually really do like Rescue Trolley. I think its uses are obviously a little bit more select than Ornate Rod, but for the decks that want it, I think it's actually a really cool card. So I'm happy to see this. One of my actually more favorite cards we looked at today. We have Digging Gloves. When the Pokemon this card is attached to attacks. Okay, 30 more to fighting Pokemon. Again, these cards are very narrow in use. Not the biggest fan. Single Strike Scroll. Or fighting metal, colorless, 300 discard all energy from this Pokemon. Oh my god. Okay. So, I mean, this is... They're trying to give your Duraludon VMAX like a backup, just huge smash attack, as the name would suggest here. Which does fill, I think, a need or a want for Duraludon VMAX, because your attack that it has is fine. It's a nice little two-shotting attack, but I could easily see against VMAX decks for like your final knockout after you've already attacked once with your 3 energy attack. Next turn, you just attach, accelerate another single strike energy, throw this thing down, and nuke a big VMAX for game. So I don't think the discard all energy is even that bad, because more likely you're only aiming to use this once a game anyways. So yeah, like there is a world where I would consider playing this in Duraludon, even though at a glance this attack cost just looks stupid, which it kind of is. So yeah, we'll see. But yeah, Duraludon VMAX is the only thing I would ever consider playing this with right now, at least. So we have Full Face Shield. The Pokemon this card's attached to, except Pokemon with abilities, takes 20 less damage from your opponent's Pokemon's attacks. Okay, now that's actually kind of cool. What Pokemon wants this, though? Off the top of my head, I'm not sure. I mean, we have, like, Big Charm already, which does the same thing a lot of the times. Like, if your opponent has to two-shot you, Big Charm is effectively only reducing 30 damage, even though it's not really reducing. Whereas this, if they attack you twice, is going to basically reduce 40. I mean, if you're a deck that already isn't one with abilities that is playing Big Charm, you would easily just play this. But I think most things don't mind Big Charm, especially since you can throw them down on other Pokemon too. Like if you are playing Dedennes or Crobats, being able to sometimes throw down a Big Charm and keep them out of one-shot range of like a sniping attack or like an ultimate ray is good. So I mean, this still could see play in those very select decks, but right now I think Big Charm is just universally pretty decent. So we have Raihan. I do kind of remember this was one of the first cards from the set that got revealed. So you can only play this supporter if one of your Pokemon was knocked out during your last turn. Choose a basic energy from discard pile, attach it to one of your Pokemon, then search your deck for any card, put it into your hand. Okay, that's pretty good. And maybe this actually will help out some of these Dragon Pokemon we looked at, like the Kyurem. I was just saying how that is kind of a clunky Pokemon to get up and running. So this could be good with that. Hey, actually, you know what? This actually could help our Salamence that we were looking at earlier in this little first impressions video. I was saying it's kind of awkward to get your Salamence up and running because you have to play things like Welder and stuff like that. But with this, you can accelerate your energy and also search your deck for your rare candy, your Salamence, whatever it might be in that way. So I kind of like Raihan. Yeah, I think it's actually is going to be a card that sees play. And I do like it especially most because it helps out single prize decks, guys. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this. Yeah, really do like this card a lot. We have Schoolgirl. This is, I will say, marginally better than the other card, Schoolboy, I think it was. Because this one's, if your opponent has 6, 4, or 2 prize cards, you draw 2 more. And the reason I say this is better is because that you can play this on the first turn of the game and not hate your life. Just a flat draw 4 is kind of okay. Yeah, a lot of times with the other one, if you draw into it early on, it's just going to be a draw 2, which feels horrendous on turn 1 while you're trying to get set up. I will be generous and say this card has some hope, the other one does not though. Okay, we have another reprint. We have Copycat, which is a card I'm actually cool with seeing come back. Copycat is a card that actually has seen play over the years. Granted, the last time it got printed, it really didn't see a ton of play. I think the only time I ever played this was a one of in my Weezing deck back when Unbroken Bonds first dropped. That was like the only time I ever played this card. But yeah, it actually used to be a really good supporter many years prior. But you shuffle your hand into your deck, draw equal to the number of cards in your opponent's hand. So yeah, could be a decent little tertiary supporter that you play as a 1 of or 2 of in certain decks. But yeah, it's fine. I'm happy to see it. I have no issues with Copycat coming back. And then our last trainer card, we have Crystal Cave. Once during each player's turn, that player may heal 30 from each of their Metal and Dragon Pokemon. So this is kind of another pseudo reprint for dragons. Like in the case of the other stadium, it was kind of a reprint of Brookett Hill. This is kind of a reprint of Rough Seas, but for Metal and Dragon Pokemon. For Metal Pokemon in particular, that's cool too. Metal Pokemon are already a type that is pretty tanky and is looking to reduce damage. So this naturally sort of synergizes with some of those Pokemon. And Dragon Pokemon, kind of to a degree as well. Duraludon is a little bit more defensive than something like Rayquaza. So being able to heal 30, especially if this stadium goes unchecked, being able to heal 30 every turn is pretty good as well. Yeah, I think this isn't quite as good as the other stadium, but I do think there is a world where this still might see some play though. But yeah, guys, that is going to be both sets. We looked at a ton of stuff today. I think overall this is kind of an exciting set. You know, getting a new type into the game or the return of an old type is going to be something that's exciting either way. But yeah, I actually genuinely did like a few cards we looked at today. I think obviously the big one out of this set is Rayquaza VMAX. I don't think I really saw anything that wasn't already revealed that really was remotely as good as Rayquaza. So that's definitely going to be the big chase card. But there's still some other stuff worth getting excited about here that we checked out. And I want to know what you guys are thinking. What cards from this set or these sets are you looking forward to? Is there anything you think is better than I gave it credit for? Or do you think I was a little too generous to anything that we looked at today? Definitely let me know down below in the comment section what you guys think about these new cards that we're going to be getting. And even though this was largely just my knee-jerk reactions, of course, guys, I am going to be doing a much more thorough full set review once we get a little bit closer to the release of these cards as well. But that's gonna be it today. If you guys did enjoy today's content, of course, smack that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. That way you'll be up to date whenever my next video drops. And if you want to take your support to the next level, you can also become a patron at patreon.com/rarecandytcg or pick up some merch over at rarecandytcg.com. It would mean a lot. But as always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.